Merry Christmas, my DigiPeeps. Now, I've given it some time and waited for this movie to be out longer than one day. The desire to come home and review it was just niggling at me for ages. I seriously cannot keep this in any longer, and considering that it's Christmas tomorrow, I thought I'd give you all a special treat, my review of Spider-Man No Way Home. The MCU movie everyone has been waiting for. I'm here to give my thoughts and opinions on a movie that it completed me, honestly. This movie, if anyone has asked me, was perfect. That is the only word I have for it. Just perfect. Now, before I begin, if you have not seen this movie yet, seriously, what are you doing? Go now. Go and see this film that's 20 years in the making. I'll wait. Seriously, no joke. I will sit here. I will go on a live stream for 3 hours so you can go and see this movie and then come back to watch my review. Now, if you have already seen this movie and come here to hear my thoughts about it, then let's just swing into it. Do you get it? You see what I did there? Swing into it? Yeah? Feel free to use that one. Okay, so right off from the bat, we are treated back into the world of Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. The whole world now knows who he is, and we deal with the direct outfall from the end of Spider-Man Far From Home. Peter is public enemy number one after he has killed Mysterio. Now, given his situation, the hero could probably handle himself. I mean, it's not like the MCU has ever shied away from secret identities with our superheroes. It's his family and friends, however, who are in danger and the ones who are suffering. They are being targeted by the public who perceive Spider-Man to be a murderer. They of course need a lawyer, so as I'm sure you have all probably heard, call in Matt Murdock. A small scene, but I swear, I love this. The MCU just grows bigger and bigger, and to see Charlie Cox don the red glasses once more, perfect. This was all we needed to make us hope for these fan-favourite Netflix characters. Absolutely great to see the character back. So, as I'm sure you have all gathered from the many trailers, Peter needs help, so enter Doctor Strange. Benedict Cumberbatch does not sleep. Seriously, that man has a twin or something. I could have sworn I saw 2 other movies listed that he was in when I went to go see this movie. Such a talented and dedicated performer. Again, not to bore you too much from what we have gathered from the trailers, but Peter is wondering if the Sorcerer Supreme can cast a spell so people forget his identity, and magic, as typical, comes with some fine print, as we learn everyone is going to forget Peter's identity. That includes NJ, Aunt May, Ned, etc. This, of course, is unacceptable for Peter, so he begins to mess around with the spell, and we are thrust in the story ready to come. More specifically, the villains to come, and this is our first appearance of Dr. Octopus. Alfred Molina just shines here in one of his most notable roles from the past. The man is 68 years of age, and he is still just as terrifying as when I first saw him in the 2004 Spider-Man 2. Arguably one of the most popular Spider-Man movies from the past 20 years. I mean, what a character to start out on. A perfect introduction to the audience's past with Spider-Man, and one of the most iconic villains for the famous hero. It turns out, as Peter wanted everyone to forget that he is Spider-Man, he was so concerned as to who he wanted to remember that he was Spider-Man, he opened up the multiverse to everyone who knows Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Again, perfect. Explained things very well in my opinion, and a fine mess that Peter finds himself in. You know, the first thing I did as soon as I was done with this movie was come home and go through the 20 years of Spider-Man movies that we had in the past. That actually led me to find a very fitting clip from one of the deleted scenes from Spider-Man 2. An extended scene where Peter meets Otto Octavius for the first time and his wife Rosie. Otto then goes into the story of when he first met his wife, as he was trying to explain the theory of relativity and she was trying to explain T.S. Eliot. This then leads Otto to quote a line from T.S. Eliot: "Time present and time past are both perhaps present in time future." When I watched this, I could not believe that this throwaway line in a deleted scene out of all things holds so much weight in the 27th MCU movie. With that in mind, we move on to these particular people who start to enter the MCU. We hear a laugh and a pumpkin bomb that rolls right back into our hero's story and blows up the nostalgia in my heart, as the Green Goblin has come back to cause his particular brand of chaos. Again, another epic introduction and something that made my heart skip a beat. Bring in a save by Doctor Strange and an explanation as to what is happening. Peter calls in his friends MJ and Ned to help him bring in these multiverse villains. And the black suit that Peter is sporting, Spider-Man had a civilian toss green paint at him, and unable to clean it off, he just pulls his costume inside out. I thought you would all appreciate that quick explanation. So Peter encounters Electro and Sandman and brings them to a wizard's dungeon and the rest of the multiverse bad guys. Those being Dr. Octopus, the Lizard, Sandman, Electro and Norman Osborn. That seems to be everyone, as Doctor Strange explains that all these people are going back to their worlds and will die at the hands of their multiverse Spider-Man. Then something truly unexpected. Peter stops Doctor Strange and tells him that he's going to help the who's who of his rogues gallery. You have a guy with 4 metal robot arms, a guy who wants to drain the city dry of all its electricity, and a giant mutant lizard, and Peter wants to help them. He wants to cure some arse, as I believe it was so expertly put. This actually leads us into a fight between the master of the mystic arts and your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. This was, as you can expect, fantastical. We have some portal hijinks and Peter being pushed out into his astral form, as you have probably seen from some promotional material. We even go back into the mirror dimension, one that Peter sciences the hell out of in order to get the upper hand, and he does. Spider-Man actually outsmarts Doctor Strange. Not only that, but he outsmarted Doctor Strange in order to help his villains. This scene just goes to show you what kind of Spider-Man, and not only that, what kind of Peter Parker we're dealing with in this film. Peter actually wants to help these doomed souls, these bad guys who he has no obligation to or love towards. I mean, he just got out of a massive fight with Dr. Octopus, and Electro tried to zap him into next week. However, Peter's true power really shines through. His unwavering care for people, despite all his power. Despite all he has been through, he wants to help people. When people tell me Tom Holland is the perfect Spider-Man, he really is just the perfect hero. And he's actually successful. He manages to recreate the chip Otto created when he first donned his infamous metal robot arms, and the Doctor is back. This scene could not have been more triumphant. To see the look of relief on Otto's face as he realizes the voices have ceased and he could come back to the man he was. It truly felt like the movie's first victory. However, no good deed goes unpunished, as they say, and when Peter Tingle alerts him to some danger, it appears a mild-mannered Norman Osborn has been working behind the scenes this whole time. I swear, William Dafoe, he just never skips a beat. It's been 20 years since he took on this role, and his voice, it's just still as bone-chilling as it has always been. The man who considers himself a god convinces the rest of the bad guys to escape and to hold on to their power, and this turns into a massive fight between Peter and Norman. The lack of masks worked wonders in this scuffle. To see the emotion on Peter's face where he has him pressed up against a wall and is just punching him again and again and again, and to see the grin from ear to ear on Norman's face, it was a look of pure evil. This only rang even more true as Norman, after destroying half the building in his fight with Peter, calls in his glider and tosses a number of pumpkin bombs to a vulnerable, beaten hero and his Aunt May. She thankfully gets up to tell a broken man that he did the right thing, and that with great power comes great responsibility. The infamous line that has been a beacon to Spider-Man since day one could not have been more earned. Everyone throughout this film is quoted as still seeing Peter as just a young kid. He's only just started his senior year of high school, yet the people around him have always been his examples. May is one of those people that reminds him to do good. Even with all his power, she still inspires him to be a good man after everything that has happened to him in the MCU. And I mean, isn't that what all these people with incredible abilities are just trying to do at the end of the day? Be good men and women? Aunt May then dies, and my heart was crushed into a million pieces. I could have left the cinema right then and there, but thankfully I didn't. MJ and Ned are held up at his mother's home, and with a few things from their interactions with Doctor Strange, MJ has made a promise to push a button on the box containing the spell Doctor Strange had cast, which would end all this madness. That's when Ned makes the blunder of wishing to see Peter with a sling ring on his fingers. He then accidentally opens up a portal, and we see Spider-Man down an alleyway who they call for to come to them, and enter Andrew Garfield. I really wish I could tell you what he said, but my whole cinema just erupted into a cheer so loud I missed it all, and this was just great. I did not know how I would feel seeing him back in the iconic red and blue suit, but all of this just worked. Ned and MJ's distrust of this so-called Peter, his brand of humour as MJ tosses a bread roll at him to see if he has a tingle. Even him hanging off the ceiling to prove who he was. Just amazing. The only word for it. Wrong Peter though. Time to try again. Another attempt with the sling ring to bring back Peter, and then enter Tobey Maguire. Again, I really wish I could tell you his first words to the group, but the crowd erupted into an even bigger cheer than before. I remember being a kid and seeing the first ever Spider-Man movie in 2002, and seeing Tobey return just made me so happy. Like, I don't have the words to describe this to you. I shed a tear. To see these particular incarnations of Peter back on the big screen, I swear I'm going to cry again. It was absolutely perfect. Of course, we get an interaction between the Peters of the past and Tom Holland's broken down, vengeful Peter, and they both explain their events of loss and hardship, but despite all this, they all know that with great power comes great responsibility. The line that seems to define this hero, no matter the universe. They, along with Ned and MJ, all convince Peter not to let Aunt May's death be in vain, and they all decide to save these villains together, off to the science lab. I have followed Spider-Man for decades, seeing him in his element, in a science lab figuring out how he's going to fix this problem. There is nothing more Spider-Man than that for me. So with some backup, all three Spider-Man go to a newly developed Statue of Liberty, with a Captain America shield replacing the torch on her arm. A nice little nod there to the MCU, reminding us what kind of world we're living in a post-Avengers future. All three of them have a little time to kill before the big battle, and this was the interaction I did not know the world needed. Tom's Peter and Andrew's Peter all ask Tobey's Peter how he has organic webbing. that if it's a private subject, he doesn't have to tell them, but they want to know. Also, the valid question on if he has organic webbing coming out of any other parts of his body. A quick mention of some battles in the past with aliens, and Andrew's Peter gets upset and says he is not as great as his multiverse versions of himself, but Toby stops him and tells him that he is amazing. Toby's Peter then complains that his back hurts, to which Andrew helps by cracking his back for him. This was so meta. It was a little fourth wall breaking, these little nods to each hero and the events of their past. The best multiverse Spider-Man scene since the two 1967 cartoon versions pointing at one another. We then of course go into the final battle, and there are some growing pains between each Spider-Man. There's webs flying and all the right moves, but none of them know how to work as a cohesive unit against the combined forces of the Lizard, Sandman and Electro. They regroup, trust in their tingle, listen to one another, and what follows is the greatest, most fulfilling moments of Sony's run with each of these Spider-Men. A great fight as all these Spider-Men start taking out their villains one by one. A little nod to a particular black Spider-Man out there in the multiverse. A little nod to a black Spider-Man somewhere out there in the multiverse. A save from a revived Dr. Octopus who sees Toby's Peter for the first time in 17 years. And the spark between these two actors' eyes, I am pretty sure that is the fourth time I shed a tear in this film. All leading up to the Green Goblin coming in. And this was a real final boss fight feel. Now, if you have seen any of the trailers, you know what's coming next. MJ falls and Tom's Spider-Man jumps to save her. He is stopped by the Goblin though, mid-air, as he blasts off with him, leaving MJ to fall to her supposed doom. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, however, jumps after her, grabs her in mid-air, and saves her just in time. This was a scene we needed. It tied up loose ends left behind the Amazing Spider-Man films and just brought that hero full circle in my opinion. Tom's Spider-Man is left to fight the Green Goblin and the vengefulness in his eyes. The fact that he beat the bad guy but just kept going. Make no mistake about it, Peter was going to kill him. Not only that, he was going to kill him in the name of Aunt May. He had not one shred of care for this evil man's well-being. In comes Toby's Spider-Man and jumps between Tom's Spider-Man and the Green Goblin, and just the look in Toby's eyes. The sincere, unwavering, older parent look he had when he helped his alternate version put down his hands and let go of the hate that he was harbouring. Just another full circle moment for the hero left behind in Spider-Man 3. All the growth and personal hardships only he could know. It was what this version of Peter needed. Toby then gets stabbed by Norman. Just the emotional roller coaster of this movie was truly too much to handle. So Tom's Peter ends up curing Norman, and it appears he has made a believer out of a very cold Doctor Strange. However, now it appears that the multiverse is cracking open, and all these people are coming through, and Doctor Strange cannot stop them. So, in a valiant act of selflessness, Peter tells Doctor Strange to recast the spell. To make everyone forget that Peter is Spider-Man. A moment for him as the growth that he has had in this movie comes full circle. Watching him say his goodbyes to Ned and MJ, my heart was rebuilt and then shattered into a million pieces again. There was a line early in the film that everywhere Spider-Man goes, chaos and calamity ensue. For me, it was kind of like Peter is accepting this fact and the fact that those who know he is Spider-Man are not safe. Then, after a successful spell is cast, that's that. Peter Parker is a ghost. No girlfriend, no best friend, no Happy Hogan, no Aunt May, just Spider-Man and a face that nobody recognises. Now, this is set up to be sad, but then I'm looking at this as a good thing. The MCU's Spider-Man is set to continue, as reported by Kevin Feige. The MCU's version of Spider-Man is set to continue, as reported by Kevin Feige. Tom is set to reprise his role as Peter Parker in 3 upcoming MCU movies. This movie has led to the slate being wiped clean. The possibilities are now kind of endless. Michelle and Ned still exist in this world, and Peter is still the same hero we know and love. We can introduce new characters like Harry Osborn or even Mary Jane Watson. We can also revisit these relationships between Peter and Michelle or Peter and Ned. We also get a new suit, rather shiny for my taste, but correct me if I am wrong, as Peter is seen sewing in his 1-bedroom apartment. It kind of felt like a mashup of both the Tobey Maguire suit and the Andrew Garfield suit, which is a great idea if they go down this route in the future. A post-credits scene which sets up some stories for our hero down the line, and a very special treat at the end of the overall credits, which I am not going to spoil, but one I recommend everyone stay behind for. And that was Spider-Man No Way Home. My thoughts on this movie are everything. I was happy, I was sad, I was mesmerised, I was enthralled, I was hopeful, I was inspired. I love Spider-Man. Sitting in that cinema, it was clear that a lot of people love him too. Spider-Man is special, not just to me, but to the world. This crazy, unique character that Stan thought up by watching a fly crawl on the wall all them years ago. A hero that was not supposed to be this successful after his first showcase was in that of a comic book that was on its last legs and was set to cancel in that year it was published. Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland have all had the distinct honour of bringing this iconic hero to our screens and inspired people to do good no matter the circumstances. I take solace in the fact that this hero and his message have touched so many people's lives, and I am happy to know that long after the MCU is over, long after I am a distant memory, Spider-Man will continue inspiring generation after generation in no matter what medium his story is told through, and I feel blessed that my life has been made better from having my favourite superhero in these incredible movie formats. And also that I get to sit here and talk about him with you fine people. My favourite MCU movie by far, and I will definitely be going to see it again. So that was my review. Tell me, what did you think about Spider-Man No Way Home? Leave a comment, like the video and subscribe if you want more. I hope you all liked my thoughts and my opinions, and I will catch you all in the next one.